Before I begin my remarks, I do want to take an opportunity to thank so much the staff of the church. They have organized this, and Brenda told me everybody in the staff was involved and included. Let's express appreciation to our staff for putting together this ceremony. I've got to follow up on Rabbi Sherman's comment about the cookies. I was sitting back at the back with Dr. Biggs about 3 weeks ago before the Sunday morning service, and he said to me that he'd set a goal that today, on June 2nd, 2013, he was going to weigh the same amount he weighed the first day he stepped up here 33 years ago. And how great is that, to have that kind of a goal? He's the most determined and dedicated person ever. Attempting to try to say some things on behalf of our congregation about Dr. Biggs is such an overwhelming responsibility. It's impossible. Again, that's why I encourage you to write your own notes, send it to him, but I'll try. As I did try to think about what I could possibly say to offer him the best compliment I could, it just occurred to me that maybe the best thing I could say is that he's the best, and he always gives us his best. I mean, how rare is that someone who is as talented as he is and as good as he is so determined every time, every year, every month, every day to give his very, very best. And I know that goes all the way back to 54 years ago when he was 18 years old, and he was preaching at those two country churches in North Texas, but he always gives us his very best. I've been asked a number of times, and again, I'm honored to be someone who has known him even longer than Bob Long did. I knew him when he was a Memorial Drive Methodist in Houston more than 45 years ago, but people have asked me over the years, well, what's going to happen, or do you think Dr. Biggs is going to run for bishop, and then we won't have him? And I said, well, I don't know, it's up to him, but I've heard him talk about it, and I think there are a couple of reasons. Of course, he could have run. He'd been asked a number of times. He could have run. He would have been elected. But I think there are a couple of reasons that he didn't do that. One is family. He realized that if he got elected a bishop, he'd have to go where they wanted him to go, which could be Nebraska or Louisiana or anywhere. And I think he and Gail decided they wanted to be close to family, and they had a better chance to do that. But probably even more issue was he's felt called and led to pastor this large Methodist church, and he is such a good preacher. And I just feel like I talked to him about a year ago knowing that this retirement was coming up, and he said, I said, how are you doing? And he said, I love every day going to work. I love this church, and I love what I'm doing. And what a special attribute that has been for all of us. You know that if this was a Dr. Biggs sermon, I think I'm point number 4, that he'd have a great story for point number 4. I decided I'd try to come up with a story. And again, remembering the point I'm trying to emphasize is how determined he is and how dedicated he has been to give us his very best every time. And so I recalled I had an opportunity many years ago to go watch Michael Jordan play basketball. And this was in Houston. This was the last year that he was playing for the Chicago Bulls. And so his career was almost over. And he'd already been recognized, as he still is, as probably the greatest human being that's ever played basketball. But this won't surprise my family, but I got to the arena about an hour and a half early and took my seat and looked down on the court, and Michael Jordan's the only player on the court. And he's got 2 team managers from the Chicago Bulls down there, and they've got a rack of basketballs, and they're alternating, and he's taken the pass at the same spot, about 18 feet from the basket, for 25 minutes, the same place. He'd dribble it twice, shoot it over his right shoulder, bank it off the glass. He shot the shot probably 100 times. He probably made 90 of them. And I don't know exactly, I never saw an interview or anything, but I'm convinced that that's somebody who's the best there is, deciding that even at the end of his career, that game might come down to one shot, and if it did, he wanted to have a place to shoot it from and to win the game. And I really believe that's the same kind of dedication and determination that Dr. Biggs has given us here for 33 years. He's talked to us about his routine probably the whole time he's been here, and that is he's going to devote 12 hours or more to writing a sermon every week, which means Monday morning that would mean 3 hours of pulling books off the shelves or reaching into his stories that he has collected or people have sent him over the years, and work really hard the whole week, at least 12 hours, probably more than that, on writing a sermon. And that's in addition to hospital calls and managing the staff and all the leadership positions that he has across the state. He's just, it takes a lot to run a big church like this, and he is obviously the best, but he still was going to be so determined. So he'd get that done, and then usually on Friday night, He'd at least be done with that, and he and Gail would dress up and go out to dinner and have a nice dinner together. They'd go to a symphony or a play if there was one. Saturday morning would usually be at an athletic event for his boys and then his grandchildren. I've seen him out at the soccer fields early Saturday mornings lately. Saturday noon was always lunch at a Mexican restaurant. All his family invited, as many as could be there. But Saturday night, unless he and Gail just had to be somewhere else, he was home, and he'd find some time to be by himself, in a quiet place, and he'd go back through the sermon and try to work on the points of emphasis and make it the best it could be. And this is maybe even the most telling. On Sunday morning, he's told us every year, or every time for 33 years, he can't eat breakfast on Sunday morning. Somebody that's the best there is, not because he was nervous about it, but I think he's just so determined to come in here and stand at this pulpit and give us the very best he had every time. And that's just a remarkable level of dedication and something for which we're so, so grateful. And the very best that he has taught us. It has brought us to tears. It has warmed our hearts. But most of all, for the thousands of us in this congregation and the tens of thousands watching on TV, it has inspired us to go out and make a difference because he's worked so hard to write the best sermon he could write every time. So Dr. Biggs, beyond words that can possibly express it, for giving us your very best, we thank you.